Good afternoon, members and those who are watching virtually. We have a few technical issues, so I am told that we are live, but just in case there are any technical issues, my apologies in advance. IT are working in the background. Welcome to Cabinet on Tuesday, 18th of January at 3 o'clock. We don't have any apologies, I don't think, so we are all here. Minutes of previous meeting held on 16th of November 2021. Thank you. Any declaration of interest? If you have any declaration of interest, any members watching, I know there are at least one watching, please complete the forms and hand them in to Andrea after the meeting. Admission of the public. We have a member of the public. Welcome, Mr. Aziz. I don't think we've got any deputations or petitions, Andrea. No. Item 6, members. Sorry, questions by members of the public. So, Tajinder, you have a question? Please try and keep it brief and succinct. I know your question is quite long from what I understand.
Thank you, Chair and Council Leader. I won't read them all out. I'll just sort of highlight some of the points because I have put them in writing to you, both the questions and supplementaries. Does the Kirklees leader accept that my declaration of good intentions and purposes are without prejudice, rancor, animus, quid pro quo and or duress to build professional relationships of mutual trust, integrity, two-way communication with you on a non-party political basis and cross-political party basis, that Kirklees is robustly defended when it is justified in the pursuits of its positive aims and objectives with the standard exceptions. Has the leader shared with the rest of the Cabinet members that I've been trying to make him aware and inform them of actual evidences my concerns about possible minor or more serious issues, crises, scandals, possible embarrassments to individual Cabinet members? And I'll skip to the end. All in all, details which are nobody else's business, which breach GDPR, General Data Protection Rules, which only came to my attention recently when I opened an envelope posted and addressed to me, which I'd left open due to my heart attack and having to concentrate on my medical condition and my health needs and recovery, which I must reasonably assume that had somebody else received these details in the post, it might have been embarrassing for me while I was in a vulnerable condition, having to cope with taking strong medications, which meant that I was not altogether compos mentis while I was battling to recover from a semblance of full lung capacity, heart function, health, well-being and good mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I answer, the screen is that one. I did say that we've got IT problems, so we've got people working in the background. So don't worry about the screens, but I am assured that we are live streaming. In terms of your question, Tajinder, thanks very much for coming to full council. And yes, I always listen to what you're saying, and always you've got intentions that are very, very sincere. And carry on talking to me. You know, I wish you are sending emails, and anything we can do, we will help you. Thank you. You got a supplementary?
Thank you, Council Leader and Chair. If I may move on to the supplementary to question 1, will the leader state here and now, does he and other members want to be made aware of, to be shown these evidences of minor or serious breaches of GDPR, privacy and confidentiality? What steps will they here and now promise to make to investigate how these breaches occurred, set up scrutiny panel or oversight panel to oversee the proper stages, processes, uncovering of details, proper justice, written apologies, including appropriate admissions of mea culpa, compensation, and to ensure Kirklees, as a leading organisation, not only sets its own house in order, but becomes a beacon of light in showing how it deals with embarrassing revelations, demonstrates leadership, openness, transparency, admits responsibility and culpability, breaches of GDPR, lacks data protection, all the best practices as codified by the nodal principles, and that is incumbent upon everybody in Kirklees Council's officers and also residents like myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. And firstly, in terms of awareness, and if you've got any issues that you want to raise with me or with the Cabinet members, I'm sure we will be more than happy to help. In terms of the scrutiny stuff, yeah, if you've got any issues, let Andrea know, because it's a governance issue. Scrutiny is a separate process to the Cabinet. But we are here to help, not just you, but also anybody else. Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Have you got any more questions?
Question to Chair and Council Leader. Does he or the Cabinet members agree with me that it's all too easy to turn around and blame a messenger who brings you unwelcome news, real evidences of breaches or failures, which I'm willing to put before them, including any sort of, agendas that somebody who's bringing these issues to you might have. Will we look at any and all of the following: scrutiny, oversight, management, effectiveness, equality, risk assessments, etc. With regard to getting to the bottom of this, what will the Council Leader, Cabinet members here and now commit to do differently to strengthen and raise their awareness, explore, scrutinise, review each every one of their roles, functions, duties, responsibilities on an ongoing basis to improve some element that justifies their continued involvement in what they're doing? Thank you.
Thank you. As Cabinet members, we are more than happy to help you where we can. If you've got any issues, bring them to us, awareness or otherwise. In terms of scrutiny, if you've got any issues regarding scrutiny, please let the monitoring officer know, because that's the role for the monitoring officer. It would be not right for me to make any comments on that. So thank you, Tajinder. You got supplementary?
I do. It's a very short one, comparatively. Will the leader state here and now one key, crucial or critical thing he and the other Cabinet members will do in each portfolio area to enhance the Nolan principles and thereby improve the trust that they need from the Kirklees electorate to have confidence in them as leader, Cabinet member or councillor? And I thank you.
Thank you. As a Cabinet, we've got a annual council plan. That is there. You can read it. It's online. We can send you a link. So if you can send Mr. Aziz a link, Andrea, I'm sure he'll read it. And in terms of the second part, we are accountable. We are democratically accountable. Every year we stand up for elections and we are accountable that way. But like I said, put everything on one side. If there are any issues, we are more than happy, Mr. Aziz, to help you where we can. Thank you. Is that end of your questions?
That's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is questions by elected members. I think Councillor Munro. Alison, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, over to you, Alison.
Okay, how much is it going to cost to bring Tilson Museum up to a modern day standard for the complementary heritage offer?
Councillor Will Simpson, is that in your portfolio? How much will it cost Tilson Museum to bring it to a modern standard, I think the question was. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you, Alison, Councillor Munro, for your question. I'd say it's nice to see you, but the screens still aren't working in here, so you're like a godly voice in this room. The answer to that is that, as I've said, I don't know whether it was our previous Cabinet or the one before, but in response to previous questions about Tolson, there's still a lot of work to do to decide what the future use of the building is going to be as a heritage asset for us here in Kirklees, and obviously what we and what the Friends of and what everyone who's involved in Tolson decides they want the future of that to be will then have an impact on what proposals are and what the cost would be. So I'm afraid I don't think any of us are in a position to be able to provide an estimate of cost, because first we need to know what we're doing, what we want from it, and how we're going to get there.
Thank you, Councillor Will Simpson. Councillor Munro, have you got a supplementary? Over to you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to know what is being considered for the complementary heritage offer.
Councillor Simpson.
Well, nothing's decided entirely in terms of what the end product's going to be. We know that it's not going to be the Huddersfield Museum, because we're creating a new museum in Huddersfield as part of our fantastic cultural heart proposals. But what it does become, other than Huddersfield's museum, is work for us to engage in, and I look forward to doing that, and we'll be sure to involve ward members in that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor David Hall. David, we can't see you, but I'm sure you can hear us. Over to you, Dave.
Yep, I'm here now. I don't know if you can see me now or not. You're very.
No, we've got a technical issue on this side, but we can hear you. Fire away.
Right. Yes. Well, I wanted to ask about this saga about the George Hotel. Really, can you tell me, given that you've now said that there'll be a liability to the public of something like 20 million if this goes ahead with the museum, can you tell me why Cabinet passed the idea in the first place?
Thank you, Councillor Hall, and thank you for the question. It's a really important question. Firstly, the only decision this Cabinet has made after years and years of neglect of the George Hotel. The George Hotel was a blight on the landscape of Huddersfield. The George Hotel has been a building that's been empty and for many, many years, over a number of years. Because we were drawing up a blueprint for Huddersfield, we thought it was an opportunity to actually make sure that we actually put that back into the heart of the community. So what we did was we actually bought it from the previous owner, because otherwise that building would have still been empty, and that is the commitment we made. The commitment that was made then, and the proposal that came forward in Cabinet, which was fully detailed and costed, because before that there was a number of gateway processes in terms of business case development, from outline to full business case, and that is when it came here. And it was a very difficult decision to make, but everything was done properly. All the cash flows were done, a business plan was put forward, and the decision we made was to bring that building back into use for a hotel. So that is the decision we made. Then what happened was we started to develop the blueprint, and whilst developing the blueprint, we've been working with a number of stakeholders, and we've put a number of bids in, not just for the George Hotel, but also for the Piazza, the Paco Centre, the market, the shops, working with Huddersfield and all our partners, and HD1. And one of the proposals that came forward was to house the Rugby League Museum. And we did put a bid in. The bid was only a bid. It was not any detailed bid in terms of what it would cost, what it would not cost, and it was an intention of intent, and that was made very, very clear at that moment in time. And unfortunately, when you go through any process regarding developing a business case, at every stage we have to look at the cost of the scheme, the effectiveness of the scheme, and the value for money and timescales. One of the things that we found at very, very early doors, and again, these were officers who are actually extremely clever, working up the full details, and it became very, very clear that it would cost us £20 million to actually house that Rugby League Museum there. And on top of that, it would also cost us year-on-year interest and debt charges. So although it's unfortunate we are here in terms of having to review that bid. It's unfortunate. I genuinely am really disappointed. Because I'm sure, like anybody else, I would have loved that hotel to have been there. But having said that, we are still working with the Rugby League and the Rugby League Cares charity, because these things will happen, especially when you're developing a multi-million-pound scheme for Huddersfield blueprint, because this is just one part of the overall blueprint. We've still got loads and loads of other schemes to actually look at. And the key asset test for me is it value for money for the taxpayer? And that's the bottom line. And also, when you're getting advised that this will actually put a massive drain on resources and it'll just suck out the money from the regeneration programme, then my role is to actually make the decision in interest of our taxpayers. So I hope that clarifies the situation, Councillor Hall. Once again, the decision in this cabinet was never to actually put the Rugby League Care and the museum here. The decision was always to buy the building and look at developing a hotel. The two was very, very challenging. We had two conflicting priorities, and it was always a challenge. You know, I've been, you know, always, you know, very careful in terms of, you know, how we move forward. So I hope that clarifies the situation, Councillor Hall. Have you got supplementary?
Yes, please, if I may. I haven't any comment on what's going on at the moment as to whether the museum will go ahead in the George or not, because I haven't seen a business case. But what I am concerned about is that what you've said then in a nutshell is that you approved the bid for the museum in Huddersfield without actually having seen a business case, and the business case was done afterwards. Is this, would you say that was normal practice?
I think we looked at the bid based on the envelope of the budget that we approved at last council meeting, and the budget we approved last council meeting did not stack up. Now we're going through a budget process now, and you know, it's an opportunity if there are different views for different parties to put in a bid to actually put in that £20 million, because you know, we didn't have the full costings. It was a bid. A bid could be an expression of interest to say that we have a George Hotel here, which was where the old museum was housed, and there was no business case. A business case is developed further down the road, and if anybody knows, I don't want to bore you about how business case development works, but when you're spending public money, the business case process is actually a long process. It could take a long time, because what we've got to do is we've got to make sure we account for every single penny. And it's unfortunate, Councillor Hall, I completely accept that we are where we are. But the intention was always a sincere one. You know, I would have loved that hotel and the museum to be housed. You know, I don't do operational management of the organisation. That is something that we have to rely on our officers. You know, the bid came along, you know, and we were approved by the people who asked us to bid. But once you actually start looking at detail, then unfortunately the bottom line is that the proposal that they want us to go down don't stack up. But now we do know what it costs. So as far as this administration goes, it's not money that we can afford to spend. But if another group wants to put that money into the budget in February, then, you know, there's an opportunity there. Thank you, Councillor Hall. Have you got another question?
Yes, please.
Yes.
On a similar theme, I just thought that the interest in this wouldn't be largely confined to the followers of Goodwillie and maybe the residents of Huddersfield. But when I read the Guardian newspaper at the weekend, which admittedly is not usually my first choice of being outright, but I do like to go on my horizons now and again, there was a piece about the affair, and it was Professor Collins, who was chairman of the independent panel who awarded Kirklees the bid, and he says the council doesn't have a viable alternative, nor do they have a track record of suggesting they have the capability of supporting a museum somewhere else. Now, this is obviously of national interest, and what really disturbs me in that is that a well-qualified and respected person has the impression that Kirklees does not have a track record of capability as far as museums are concerned. Could you suggest why you might think that?
Thank you, Councillor Hall. What I will do is I'll ask Councillor Peter McBride, who is probably more sort of versed and understands the detail a lot more than I have. Councillor Peter McBride, can I ask you to come in? Your mic is on.
We're not in the business of trying to work out the minds of somebody else, so he forms that judgment. Now, these judgments are made over a period. In the first instance, we did genuinely believe we could house everything together and with our bid. In the light of experience, i.e. taking over the building, looking at in detail all the problems that were inherent in the building, we began to realise the scale of the problem was far bigger than we had originally presumed. So you make decisions in the light of experience. So what you may decide at one point may be changed in the light of experience. And if it wasn't, you'd be rather stupid. You would be not looking at events and you'd be looking at reality. So there was no intent whatsoever of misleading anyone. We did genuinely believe we could achieve our joint objective, which was to have a new hotel and house the museum within it. And that had originally been an idea, which did not work in the first place, let's be very, very clear. It subsequently turned out that this has not also been possible. It is not a lack of will to achieve that objective, nor is it a wish to frustrate, or has it ever been a wish to mislead anybody. It has dismayed us to find we can't achieve all those objectives together. And I've talked with some of the key people involved in this to explain. And it's disturbing to me, and I think everybody involved in this within Kirklees, to appreciate we have not been able to achieve this. But the bottom line has always been, what are you trying to achieve by having bought this building, which is a very expensive building, and certainly the additional costs which go with it, very, very extensive. Does the council want a hotel or does it want a museum? Because that's what it's coming down to, effectively. It's almost a choice between, which was never our intent. Essentially, we bought a hotel to renovate and redevelop a hotel. And we wish to house within that. And we have not been able to achieve it. We would try our utmost to achieve the minor objective somewhere within Kirklees and within the cultural heart. And we've tried extensively to achieve that. We've talked at length, which I have, with the people directly involved. And I assure you, we've always acted in good faith, but ultimately we are responsible to the ratepayers of Kirklees, and we've got to spend money sensibly and achieve what they want overall and what would be their priorities. And we're making a judgment in those terms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Peter McBride. Councillor David Hall, have you got a supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that response. So it's where we go from here, really. Do we have a viable alternative lined up? And what conversations are we having with the rugby league bodies at the moment to persuade them that we can actually house the museum somewhere suitable in Huddersfield?
I'll ask Councillor Peter McBride to respond to that.
What I explained to you has been explained to the rugby league. Clearly, they're not happy, they're upset, they believe, in a sense, they were misled. I don't think they were misled. I think they were given the information at one point in time which was true and which ultimately proved not to be true, but because of events, not because of any intent to deceive. And I've explained that very clearly to the rugby league, the people I've dealt with in the rugby league, and I do believe they're sensible people and they do understand. I can understand their sense of hurt. I can understand the frustration that their overall objectives have not been able to be achieved. And I would hope that they could work with us to still put their museum within Kirklees and within the cultural heart. And I would hope that could be. And if it can't be, I'm afraid it's so be it, but that's not what we want. We want to work with the rugby league to achieve our objectives, as well as, ideally, what might be theirs.
Thank you, Councillor Peter McBride. Councillor David Hall, or any other councillors who want to speak? Councillor Hall, have you got any more questions? No. Andrew, is anybody else working? No. Right, thank you very much for councillors for bringing them questions to Cabinet, and thank you for the responses that we've had from Councillor Will Simpson and Councillor Peter McBride. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 8. Kirklees school funding arrangements for financial year 2022-23. Councillor Carol Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this report is quite a technical report, as I'm sure if you've read it you'll have recognised by now. But it sets out the arrangements for the school's funding formula for the financial year 2022-23. It needs to be submitted to the education, ESFA funding agency before the 21st of January, a couple of days' time, for approval. Once it's approved by them, and we are notified of this, then schools will be allocated their specific funding levels in each school, and that should be by the 28th of February. It seeks approval for the specific funding factors used to arrive at the school's funding formula. It details the exceptions which are to apply to the formula, which in this case is just one school. And it identifies the Central Schools Services block, the Dedicated Schools Grant block, the Early Years block, and then the arrangements for de-delegation. The Education Learning Partnership Board and the Schools Forum have been consulted on and approve it. It is their recommendations that are at the end of this report. And it's the Schools Forum that's the body that has the responsibility for agreeing this on behalf of maintained schools. And for that, they must be thanked for the work that they put in, which is over and above the work that they all do in their individual schools. As I said, there is a disapplication of the funding formula request that applies to just Ashbrow School. And this is as a result of historic overfunding following the merger of the primary and the junior school some years ago. This should be the last year of that this application. The delegated or the de-delegated budget arrangements only apply to a small number of budget headings, 7, in fact at the moment, and we have recently heard that the government intends to remove the school improvement commissioning from that list of de-delegated budget headings, and that is actually £500,000 in total. That money will in future pass directly to schools. The dedicated schools grant pupil funding levels for the coming year are 4,686 per primary school place and £6,016 per secondary school place. That is a rise of 2.5%. The high needs budget is still underfunded, and that's detailed again in the report, is resulting in a year-on-year deficit growth, despite arrangements being put in place to reduce this every year. We are currently in discussions with the ESFA to hopefully resolve this situation in the very near future, which is actually part of a national funding formula issue or problem. The Central Services block, the money which comes direct to the council to support schools, maintained or academies, is £35.07 for every 4 to 16-year-old attending schools in the borough. As I said earlier, the Schools Forum has approved in principle the detail in this report and has recommended that we do so too. So I asked the Cabinet to note the changes to school funding arrangements for 2022-23, which is the 5th year of soft application of the new national funding formula, leading to the full introduction of the national funding formula for schools from April 2024. To note the ongoing local consultation with schools and other providers to ensure an appropriate local response to national funding formula developments, and to support the officer recommendations contained in the report, and as I said earlier, to thank the Schools Forum for the members for their work on this. Thank you.
Chair, I'd like to second this and also join with Councillor Patterson in thanking the Schools Forum for the work that they've done at great lengths with this. And just to make a comment in terms of despite the high needs requirements of Kirklees being underfunded, I would like to point out to people on page 21 under 272 that Kirklees, along with approximately 1/3 of other local authorities, will still receive the lowest funding base rates for 2, 3 and 4-year-olds from April 2022. And we all know that early years are the foundation time for children to achieve in education, and I think in spite of that detriment, the schools in our borough do a terrific job, and I would like to thank them all for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carol Patterson and Councillor Viv Kendrick, and just highlighting what we've just said, that Kirklees will be one of the lowest funded authorities for early years. That is very, very shocking. Actually, I didn't realise it was so bad. But despite that fact, we have an excellent team of school teachers and local education leaders, and we're doing our best, and hopefully we'll continue to do our best. So, if there's no other comments, are we all agreeing to do that? Have we got anybody who wants to ask any questions, Andrea? No? Okay, show of hands, and we'll move on. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 9, Enhanced Electoral Standard Review, the Electoral Standard and the Home Starter Fund. It's a long title. Councillor Cathy Scott. Cathy, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. The report comes before Cabinet to report on the outcome of the review of the Enhanced Lettable Standards pilot and to propose a new lettable standard for all the empty homes and to better meet tenants' needs. This is an important paper which signals the change in the standard of the housing that this council now offers. And when we made the decision to transfer K&H into and we wanted to improve the quality and the standard of the homes out there for our council's tenants to live in. I and this administration are determined that we will do this and we will invest, and we are. We're investing in building the more council homes. We're already on 4 sites, currently under construction, and more growing in the pipeline with new opportunities. We're investing in new technologies, in retrofitting. We're investing in a cleaner and more attractive neighbourhoods. It is not just about the homes, it's about the environment where you live. This report talks about new improved standards for this council's housing, where new tenants have the best chance to succeed in their tenancies in their new homes, whilst also ensuring that our most vulnerable tenants get the support that they need. At the last Cabinet meeting, we approved a rent increase, and it was challenging to do it, but this is allowing us to reinvest directly for the tenants' benefit. The review of the pilot took into account the condition of the stock that we currently have, the satisfaction for those in receipt of the enhanced lettable standards at that time, and also others that didn't receive it. It looked into the impact on the waiting times for work to be completed. The tenant's voice has been crucial in this, and we said and we made a commitment that the tenant's voice would be listened to. Tenants have played a crucial part in this, and they've made feedback and raised comments to us in order for us to have an opportunity to make change. So today I'd like to thank them for the time they've took in coming back to us, to telling us, because we can only make change if we know about if there's anything a problem. I ask Cabinet today to approve the amendments to the Enhanced Lettable Standard policy to reflect the new standard and the continuation of the Home Starter, as stated in 6.1 and 6.2 in this report. I also asked Cabinet to also agree with me today that in 6 to 12 months we will measure these changes and see if any significant impact has been made, and we will listen again to the tenant's voice. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cathy Scott. Anybody seconding that? I'll second that. I'm looking at people and they're just next other. So I'll second that. Once again, thank you, Councillor Cassie Scott, the amount of work you've done in this portfolio. And it's really good to hear that we are improving the standard of housing in Kirklees, investing in our council homes, and the council homes within the 4 sites that Cassie you mentioned. It's a really, really good start to actually making sure that as we have taken on the council housing back in-house, we're really showing that we actually are moving forward. So I don't have anybody else putting their hands up. Councillor Viv Kendrick, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how much I welcome the support for care leavers. You know, it is so important for our young people who are leaving care without necessarily family support. We do try as an authority to support them well, but this move forward just shows our housing's support for care leavers. And of course, another criteria is people who are fleeing domestic violence, who have great need, and it has to be very much welcome. So I very much support this report. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Viv Kendrick. Councillor Paul Davies, you got your hand up?
Thank you. Yep, just some quick comments. I very much welcome this. I think what certainly I'm delighted with is the respect that we show in our tenants, and I think, as Councillor Scott says, the efforts that have been taken to listen to our tenants, to involve them, and to treat them in a way which demonstrates that. And absolutely, you can see from the report the way this will raise standards going forward. So very impressed and very much welcome this and support the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davies. Are we all okay to have a show of hands to approve this report? Thank you very much, members. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 10, Highways 2-year capital plan for 2021-22 and 22-23. Councillor Naheed Mather. Naheed?
Thank you, Leader. I bring this report to update Cabinet colleagues on the 2-year detailed capital plan, as you referred to, 21-22, 22-23, rollover, reprofile and city region sustainable transport settlement. The report is in 2 parts. The first part highlights the changes to the capital plan and which were taken to Cabinet on 1st of June 2021. The table in Appendix B on page 61 confirms the funding changes to each of the individual budget areas as an update to the original amounts approved on 1st of June 2021. However, a high-level breakdown for rollover, new funding and reprofile funding is shown in section 3. There you have a breakdown in terms of the changes to maintenance budget, which includes street lighting, integrated transport and developer contributions, and the reprofiled overall budget is in Appendix A for the 2 years. And then in section 2, there is an update to Cabinet regarding the upcoming city regional sustainable transport settlement for the next 5 years, prior to the detailed highways a breakdown in 22-23, 23-24 report being brought to Cabinet in the new financial year. So it will be in April. I ask my Cabinet colleagues to approve the revised detailed 2-year capital plan in the sum of 26,194,532 and 24,106,315 respectively, as shown in Appendix A. And I also ask my Cabinet colleagues to approve the delegation of authority to the Service Director Highways and Street Scene in consultation with the Cabinet portfolio holder for environment to enable future amendments to be identified schemes and funding allocations for those schemes not already identified in this report in accordance with the Council's financial procedure rules for the purposes of expediting efficient delivery of this programme. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Anybody want to second this? Councillor Will Simpson? Yeah, I seconded it. Any questions, comments? No? Show of hands. We'll move on. Thank you very much. Move on to the next item. Item 11, non-transport function borrowing regulations. This is an urgent item that's been brought forward. Members will know that the Combined Authority has got some powers to borrow, and them powers mainly are around transport. The government has been with a view to pass some powers to ensure that not just West Yorkshire but also South Yorkshire and Tyneside get the functions to make sure that the ambitions that they put forward, which links into the national ambitions around housing regeneration and net zero carbon, is fulfilled. And that's why this paper is in front of us. I'd like to thank all the officers that have worked very hard at the Combined Authority and also in the Council, and also like to thank over the Scrutiny Committee because of the importance and urgency of this report. They've said that they've waived this report to go through Cabinet because we have to make a decision in Cabinet to be able to then allow the Combined Authority to then proceed forward, because the deadline is the 20th of January. So basically the approval is to consent in principle to the regulation to provide the Combined Authority with the power to borrow for non-transport related functions set out in the Minder to Devolution deal. Secondly, to delegate authority to the Managing Director of the Combined Authority in consultation with the lead and the Chief Exec of each constituent council and the Chair of the Combined Authority to finalise the consent to the final draft of the regulations, further to any technical issues which may arise. So, have I got a seconder for that? You've all seconded it, which is good. Have we got any members want to make any comments? Okay, can we have a show of hands and we'll move forward? Thank you very much, members. Item 12 is the relocation of the council's indoor market in Huddersfield. Councillor Will Simpson.
Thank you very much, Shabir. So as I think we all know, we're really ambitious about regenerating our borough and delivering on that at pace. The cultural heart is obviously at the centre of our plans for Huddersfield, and it'll be one of the biggest investments we've ever seen in Huddersfield to create a thriving, modern and vibrant town centre. As we all know, that means big changes to the Piazza and Queensgate, with our long-term vision being a new market within the Northumberland Street regeneration project. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we keep our traders at the heart of the town's retail offer and minimise any disruption to them. That's what this report is all about delivering today. We're working with the traders and engaging with them to temporarily relocate them into the heart of the town's retail offer, whilst we deliver on the cultural heart and the longer-term vision for Northumberland Street. This is really important because I know from my conversations with traders when I've been in on a number of occasions since I took up the portfolio and have spoken with them, they've not only been impacted by obviously the pandemic, but obviously with the unfortunate loss of the car park due to the safety issues that we had with there. That's been a real struggle for them. Without that passing trade, they feel much more out of the town centre, and that's had an impact on them as well. So it's really important that we support them to make sure that they're not at the side, but they're in the centre of our town's retail offer. So I just want to finish with a quote from the traders themselves, because of course they are at the heart of it, and we're going to continue to work with them. It's from Mark Smith, who's the chair of the Queensgate Market Tenants Association, and Mark says, "I'm looking forward with eager anticipation to the relocation of the market. It'll hopefully provide a much needed boost to both existing and new traders, as well as the surrounding shops and venues. This is my livelihood, and I'm keen to support the move and work together with the council in making the market a thriving hub of trade and community, serving residents and visitors for many years to come." And we're certainly looking forward to working with Mark and all of the members of his association to deliver that. Thank you, Leader.
Not many comments, but certainly as I was in my previous portfolio, obviously working on this, and then Will has done a fantastic job since. Couldn't agree more with him. I think it's great to see the engagement of the traders there as well, and certainly this this is a fundamental part of our revitalisation of the town, so absolutely support it.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. Councillor Naheed Mather.
I just wanted to say how pleased we've been with the engagement with the businesses in our markets. They've been kept informed and abreast of all of the developments, and us, we are making this decision. We know a lot of them are very, very keen to make that move and do feel pleased that they have been kept informed and abreast of all the developments. And it's thank you to our officers who have actually done a sterling job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. And yeah, absolutely. So, Councillor Peter McBride.
Yeah, I think we may underestimate the scale of this operation and what's been achieved. You're talking about taking two markets and putting them into one in the long term, and an interim arrangement, which is going to keep broadly most people happy. Not everybody's going to be happy about this state of affairs. A lot of marketeers are being affected by this. The fact that the transition has gone so relatively smoothly is a major issue, particularly by Chris Cotton, who's worked assiduously with the market operators, and to try and achieve for them what they can, and at the same time achieve what the council is trying to transcend, to take the situation from now or to the situation we ultimately want to achieve. And you know, that doesn't happen overnight. It requires a great deal of management, organisation, goodwill and negotiation, which is effective. And I think Chris has done a fantastic job, and I think so has his team, and I think there will still be difficulties, but the attempts to put in place what will keep most people reasonably happy in these very difficult circumstances, I think is a major achievement.
Yes, Councillor Peter McBride, I completely agree with you. This has been extensive planning. I've seen firsthand where councils have actually planned effectively when they're doing something like this. And those that have done it well have actually succeeded, and they've continued with a healthy, prosperous market offer. Those that haven't have actually stumbled on a lot of problems. I just want to echo what everybody else has said. We've got fantastic officers working in the council. Councillor Peter McBride mentioned Chris Cotton, who heads the markets. His team have done some fantastic work. But I think not just about this regeneration project, but also the stuff that we've been doing in Dewsbury, and also the way that the staff have actually worked over the last 24 months in the pandemic has been sterling, and it really makes me proud to be a leader, and I'm sure it makes us all proud to be cabinet members leading this council amidst the worst human crisis we've seen in decades. And I want to keep on saying this every meeting, and I'm glad you all said it, because our officers have been the ones that have actually made sure that we've actually come through, and that we've come through even stronger. Because sometimes officers get undermined, overlooked and forgotten. And sometimes, and I'm seeing more of this, they're getting unduly criticised, which shouldn't be the case. So at every single opportunity I get, I'm going to stand up and say thank you very much to all our staff. Thank you very much to our bin workers. Thank you very much for our care workers. Thank you very much to the housing workers, the social care staff, the children's services staff. The list goes on. Because without them, we would not be in the situation that we are in. And I'm really, really pleased that we've got a fantastic exec team, service directors, led by an excellent chief exec, and I'm hoping she's listening. But in all fairness, we've done sterling work, and I'm really pleased that we've got this far. So without further ado, can I have a show of hands that we approve this report? Thank you very much. Next is the 2021-22 Mid-Year Corporate Performance and Impact Report. Councillor Paul Davis.
Thank you, Leader. This report provides an overview of council performance and activity that contribute towards the Kirklees shared outcomes. It's the first performance and impact report of 21-22, and that's primarily due to redirection of resources previously to support our response to the pandemic. So clearly it's been difficult to provide this sort of information up until now. The report contains headline successes and achievements, but importantly, it also outlines challenges and risks associated with delivery against each of the outcomes. And I think, you know, that plays certainly to our strong commitment of transparency as an administration, but more importantly, it's not just about transparency, it's about enabling us to understand where we've got to focus, what efforts in collaboration and partnership with officers we have to make to achieve our outcomes. So this report is very important in that respect. It also includes evidence of the direct and some evidence of the direct and indirect impact of COVID-19 in terms of the pandemic on council services, and of course our outcomes for people and places across Kirklees. One thing to note with this report is that this is a continuing piece of work or an approach which officers have been working on for the last few years, and that's about focusing on demonstrating the impact the council activity has. In other words, the difference that we make to our citizens. I think this is vital that we keep this in mind. It is not just about how many things we do, it's about how we are impacting people in their daily lives and how we are achieving some of the ambitious outcomes which we believe will improve people's lives across Kirklees. I'll continue to work on that in my portfolio as a priority, and I'm very confident that we'll see even further improvements in this report going forward. The next report is due for Cabinet in the summer, and that'll be the end of year, and there we'll focus very much on actions and deliverables related to the Council Plan 21-23. As I said, this report is for noting, but welcome any comments and thoughts from fellow Cabinet members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. Councillor Naheed Mather. Naheed.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I start where the Leader finished off at the last, summing up the last report, is by thanking all the staff who have enabled us to deliver throughout the pandemic, especially those on frontline services, as my staffing in environment is. I am very pleased with the performance outlined under the clean and green headings, starting at page 144 to 148. On 145, you have how well we've done, and it's amazing. Then it outlines, I'm not going to reread because it would take too long. The next steps are outlined, and then the waste management strategy and recycling, how we negotiated the interim contract and what's happening, the next steps there. Just a few figures just to let you know that in terms of potholes, in 2021, over 28,000 potholes were repaired at a cost of just over £2 million. And in terms of bin crews, in Kirklees, we emptied a staggering 9 million bins in a year and collected 99.7% of them on time. So that just tells you, despite the pandemic and in extenuating circumstances, stepping up to the transformations and the testing centres, staff being moved, sickness and isolation, we've managed to do what we said on the tin. And I am so very pleased, and I'm sure we have delivered efficiencies for the residents of our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Naheed Mather. Anybody else? Councillor Cathy Scott.
Yeah, it's just a quick comment on page 150, where we look at the sickness of the staff and the support that they need. We're in a pandemic, and the reality is we need to be supporting each other. And I think they're working tirelessly, they're doing the best they can. And I think we should all stop and think about, you know, we're quick to condemn and complain, but there's limited resources, and a lot of his staff are working over and above what they should be. So I just think we should be commending them and taking note that despite being in a pandemic, they're doing the best they can.
Absolutely agree, Councillor Scott. Anybody else? Councillor Will Simpson? Bill?
Thanks, Leader. Just to speak briefly to my section, which starts on page 140. I think I'm going to be speaking mostly to 141. Just to recognise, again, like you said, Shabir, I should have said, and I'm glad Peter did, about the work Chris does in our markets team. Again, my climate team, it's a small team, but they're absolutely incredible, and they punch above their weight in terms of the amount of stuff that they do and the amount that we deliver. It's in the impacts and outcomes section there, and I've talked about it before, but I'll continue to talk about it till I'm blue in the face, that we outperformed our carbon reductions target that was set for us previously. We achieved it a year early. We overachieved. We were supposed to reduce our carbon emissions by 40%. We actually reduced them by 53.5%. If you look at the comparison, I'm not going to show off, I'm not going to rub it in any other council's faces, but we have beaten Leeds, we have beaten Calderdale, we have beaten Wakefield, we have beaten Barnsley. We've drawn with Bradford, so well done Bradford for keeping up with us. But we are doing a fantastic job, not just on our own, but comparatively to our neighbouring authorities as well. Obviously, there's a lot more to do. I think we've got a really, really important leadership role in terms of tackling the climate emergency. But it's also really important for us and for residents to remember that as a council we can't do all of it. We're only, as local authorities broadly, I'm not talking Kirklees specific, but local authorities analysis shows that we're only responsible for about 5% of the emissions in each of our boroughs. We only have some element of control or influence over a further third. The majority of emissions are out of our control entirely, and that's why that it's important that we play that leadership role and get people around the table and make sure that we try and deliver that together. But as I say, we can't do it on our own. That's why we've got the Climate Commission, and we're trying to bring more people on board. But like I say, we've done some exceptional work. We want to do more, and I do have to say that we could do more if we had the resources that we need from government. At the minute, we don't, not just to deliver the level of service in other elements of my colleagues' portfolios. We don't have that already, but we certainly don't have the amount that we need to be able to decarbonise at the rate that we want to and need to. So, you know, following COP, you'd hope that the government would have come forward with something a bit more forward-thinking. At the minute, we've still got one-off pots year on year, hand to mouth, and you can't deliver a decarbonised, sustainable economy with that. So I hope that the government will step up and take it more seriously going forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Will Simpson. Excellent response. Anybody else? No? Just going from what Councillor Simpson just said in terms of resources. Very recently I heard that the electronic voltage charging units for vehicles, obviously they're everywhere, and you see them in the motorways, and a lot of the cars have got them now. You get vehicles that are, fully EV. But the issue is around distance, or how much can you run before you actually need another charge. And if you get 300, 400 miles, you've done well. But recently I've been talking to a lot of people, I've been doing my own research as well. So I didn't know that every single EV charge is different. So, it's not standard, like standard 13 amp, you just plug it in. Also, every single supplier has got a different app. Now, I don't know about you, but every time I go to Leeds, and I've got my app downloaded for this national thing, where you tap your numbers in and it does it. And I've got it on there, but it takes me ages to just get a parking ticket. But can you imagine if you go to Woolley Services, which is in Denby Dale, and come up from London, and you've got like 0 miles left to go to Leeds, and you've got to download an app, and then when downloading the app, it don't work. Your phone's not charged or whatever. And once you do download it, the adapter is wrong. You know, you've got the wrong connection. And if you do get the connection, and this has really happened to a lot of friends I know, it don't work. So the point I'm making is, right, there's so many suppliers, and you're right, private sector will take a lead on this, because unless you actually change that private sector, that motor industry market, you don't want to change. But I think governments have got to play a part in this as well. And it's not a political point, it's just something that, you know, is common sense. You know, there needs to be a national standard, like Cassie talked about housing standards. You know, we need to have national standards. We need to have a national benchmark that if I charge my car in Wakefield, or in Batley, or Dewsbury, or Denby Dale, then if I go down the road to Sheffield, right, yeah, you know, I won't have a problem. But seriously, it is ridiculous. And I'm thinking of buying a more efficient, more sort of like user-friendly, more climate-friendly car. But I'm thinking, God almighty, I might as well get a hybrid, which is like 50% petrol and 50% hybrid that it charges itself. Because I'm not joking, it costs a bomb anyway. It costs about 50 grand to start with. But if you can't use it, if you can't charge it, you know, a friend of mine, I don't tell you who it is, said that I don't take my car on long distances, I only drive it local. So I said, what do you do when you're going long distances? He said, I get my 5 litre diesel, you know, guzzling diesel, that'll take you down to London, and I'll pay that extra tenner for the London congestion charge or this new zone they're putting. I said, yeah, but it'll cost you. He says, yeah, but you know, it'll cost me a hell of a lot. You know, if I take my car there and get it towed back. So there is a national vacuum in terms of policy, in terms of initiative, in terms of direction, you know, and really there's an opportunity here. The private sector is actually really coming up to the mark, but we just need a clear policy. And you don't need resources. We do need resources, but it needs intellectual big brains to actually develop a policy that actually we can all implement. Councillor Firth.
There's definitely space for a multi-use adapter. You can make a fortune, set it up tomorrow.
But they won't do it, and it was no national guidance. And, you know, people say, well, you know, waiting for government. Councillor Paul Davis.
I'm not going to talk about having long cables running behind your car and various other things and multi-adapters. But on a serious note, with regards to something that I'd not mentioned, which I realise I hadn't mentioned, in terms of this report, one thing I certainly do not want to give an impression that this is a report that's just for officers. This is actually a key mechanism and tool for us as a cabinet, and I think it demonstrates very clearly that this cabinet is not afraid to take the lead and to make the significant strategic decisions and to put in place mechanisms, as I've just talked through, which enable us to manage those going forward. So let nobody be under any illusions that this is simply a tool for officers. This is very much for us as a cabinet to use going forward.
Absolutely, completely spot on. I can't see anybody else's hands up, so can we have a show of hands that we are okay with this report, and we'll move on to the next. Have we got anybody? And no councillors. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 14, calculation of tax base 2022-23. Councillor Paul Davis.
Thank you, Leader. Yep, this is an annual report. It does require us as authority to set council tax base for the forthcoming financial year, and that we have to do in accordance with government regulations. The calculation of the council tax base takes as a starting point the tax base as at 30th of November each year, and then forward forecasts for the remainder of the current year and the next year. It's based on a range of factors as set out in the report in order to arrive at the overall amount for 2022-23, and this is expressed as a Band D equivalent. The proposed tax base in the report for 2022-23 is 121,906. This is an increase on last year, but 21-22 was 119,177. The report notes that in arriving at the 121,906 figure, it reflects a review of previous prudent projections for 22-23, which we saw in existing medium-term financial plans in terms of the extent of the COVID impact on collection rates, housing supply growth assumptions, and current year performance and predicted trends. So in summary, we're able to put in a higher figure than we previously thought would be possible. This report also sets out specific tax bases for the 5 parish councils for 22-23, including the very last remaining parish grant payable to Mirfield for 22-23 at 697. And just as a reminder, these grants relate back to 2013-14 and the localisation legislation, where in effect parish and town councils, their tax base was reduced and therefore they were losing money, so there was a grant payable. But of course, over time, their tax bases have increased, so no longer those grants applicable. But it is at the moment only Mirfield that hasn't quite caught up yet. So the council tax base forms part of agreeing the level of council tax for 22-23, which will be considered obviously at Budget Council on the 16th of February. So as a Cabinet, what I would ask you to do is to agree the report as proposed and the detail within for the council tax base, so that we can then subsequently recommend that to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. I'd like to second that report. Have we got any questions from any members of the public? Anybody online? Can I have a show of hands to approve that report? Thank you very much, members. We'll move on to item 15, but before I do so, can I just check again that we've all read the item under item 16, exclusion of the public? Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 15, the Arcade Marketplace Dewsbury. We're talking about the lease here. So somebody who can tell you all about Dewsbury and the arcade and marketplace, I introduce you to Councillor Eric Firth. Eric, over to you.
Thank you very much for the intro. You can do that every time. Thank you, Leader. I really do welcome this. No, I don't actually. I celebrate this coming. It's a milestone in our ambition for Dewsbury in the deliverance of the blueprint. I'd like to thank this group actually for coming together, working together. It's almost like a modern day cooperative is the Dewsbury Arcade Group, and of course our officers have worked diligently with them for quite a long time to make this happen. So going forward, I think we can expect, though we're going to have to be patient by the way, we all know that this is just one of the major milestones. We've got the management group there. We still have got to get the arcade refurbished and up and running, which is going to take some considerable time. But so popular is this, by the way, this idea about regenerating the arcade. We have a waiting list of people that want to actually trade in there, which is absolutely superb. It's fantastic. I could wax lyrical, by the way, about the arcade, about the catalyst for change for a long time, but I think you want your tea. So can I move the recommendation on pages 179 and 180? And I really do welcome this. Thank you.
I can see the enthusiasm in your voice, Councillor Firth. Before I ask the other cabinet members to come in, we've got Councillor David Hall who has asked to speak on this. David, over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you, Eric. First of all, can I ask the question? There is the bid information in there from the community company. Has the Cabinet seen a business case which has got figures in it?
Councillor Firth.
Sorry, David, did you hear that? I forgot. You didn't hear anything? No. David, it's in the papers that undoubtedly there is a risk for this group and for us, a managed risk, because this is the first group of its kind in the country. We are the first, we're leaders. So there is a risk, but it's been carefully monitored. Due diligence has been done by our officers, and as we all think, members think, officers think, and of course the group think, it's going to be a glorious success.
David, have we got a supplementary?
Yeah, please, if I could just follow up with that about the risk. Paragraph 2.39, there is some risks in there which are all either red or red stroke amber. But I would have thought the biggest risk is the fact that of the £6.6 million that the council is going to spend on this project, 3 million of it has not yet been awarded because it's due to one bid that's just gone in and a bid that hasn't been made yet. What is the Cabinet's contingency plans if that money is not forthcoming?
Councillor Firth?
There is one bid, by the way, that's pending, David, the English Heritage bid, though I think the mood music from them has been very good. The rest, you know about the town bid, the town board, and they actually are putting some money in, and as are we, but we are confident that it will stack up.
Did you get that, David?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, have we got another question?
Well, Councillor did mention the rest of the money that is going in for a bid from the lottery fund. What if we don't get the 3 million from the lottery fund?
Councillor Firth?
That's one of the reasons that no work has started yet, David, because you know that once you put a bid in, if you start work, they won't pay out retrospectively. As I said, the mood music is good, and hence we can't start work yet until we do get the nod about the lottery money.
Just to add, Councillor Hall, just before you come in, is my understanding that we bought this arcade. Yes. Also, my understanding is that there is a Dewsbury Town Board, which actually we've got to have, because part of the Dewsbury Town bid was to actually develop a Dewsbury Town Board, which is chaired by somebody who is a very learned and very experienced individual, Keith Ramsey, who's sort of like gone through a very robust process, and we appointed him, and the MP Mark Eastwood on that panel as well. And the board is made up of a lot of individuals, all of them are private sector, I think. I think the only person that's the council is myself, and I've got my substitute in Councillor Cassie Scott who attend the meetings. So from a governance point of view, there is more than the necessary due diligence in place. And to be honest with you, I'm actually really pleased that we've got that extra structure in place, because it shows that the government has actually thought about this very, very carefully. And it also means that we've got some independent experts on the board who actually have that extra pair of eyes. And at the same time, we have to go through a detailed business process. And we all know that one of the reasons why Dewsbury bid was successful was because we've actually put quite a lot of our own money. I'm sure Councillor Firth will recollect what the amount is. But at the same time, Pioneer House, we know many years ago, again, that building was a very derelict building, completely an eyesore, very much like George Hotel. And we relied on a private sector to buy that building, and they did, and they knocked 10 bells out of it, and they didn't do anything. And it was a listed building, and they made a complete eyesore of the whole site, to the tune that we had to intervene. If we didn't, a lot of the heritage, a lot of the listed features, and a lot of the character of the building would have been destroyed. And I'm glad we did, and I'm glad you know, the councillors from Dewsbury put a lot of pressure on the council, and the council obviously, you know, had to go through a due diligence process and make sure that we bought that building. And it was always a risk. And when you go on these ventures, it is a risk. But one of the key things that we actually took that measured risk was to make sure that, you know, we actually put the aims and objective of this council in what it's trying to do. B, we know that Dewsbury was changing as a town, changing as a place. The demographics were changing. And like any other northern town, with the deprivation of the years of underfunding, we had to make sure that we output our money in, which we did. And the commitment was there, the energy was there, and the will were there. And on the back of that, the college, when it amalgamated to become Kirklees College, they rationalised their asset base, and one of the things what they did was to sell the old Halifax Road site, and they relocated to the big building just behind me, down Manchester Road. And again, that was a big risk because we actually put forward, I think £20 million security to make sure that happened, which it did. And at the same time, with the right partners, we've managed to turn around Pioneer House to something which is going to be brilliant for the town. So the risk in terms of the footfall has diminished. And on the back of the town's fund, you know, the government set out, which was again a really great success story. We put this bid in, and I was really pleased that when we did buy the arcade. But I can vouch for one thing. I think if we don't take measured, calculated risks, then, you know, what is it that we stand for as politicians? Now, I'm not a business case writer. I'm not a bid writer. I never will protest to be one. And I don't understand business cases or cash flows or projections. But one thing I do know, that we have got an excellent board, Dewsbury Town Board. We've got excellent politicians who are on a cross-party basis who are trying to make this work. And we've got some excellent officers who actually are advising us properly. And at any point, if we do get advice that actually gets alarm bells going, we will have to look at this, because the bottom line is public money, it's taxpayers' money. But I know that I've got an excellent, very capable cabinet member who is leading on this, who will keep an eye on this. And if he sees anything going wrong, he'll come and tell us. But at the same time, you know, we've got to talk the town up. You know, we can't talk the town down. A lot of these things, in a previous life I used to work, you have to talk the whole thing up. And I hope we can all do that. Councillor David Hall, my apologies for rambling on a bit, but I think it was important that I put that context forward, because so people understand that, you know, the wider aims and ambitions of this council. But before I bring Paul Davis in, Councillor David Hall, do you want to add anything further, please?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David Hall. Councillor Paul Davis.
Yeah, certainly, you know, very excited, you know, with this work. I think there's a couple of points I'd like to make. I think Councillor Firth already outlined the community interest company that will be working or taking this forward, and we're seeing more and more community-based organisations forming, and certainly my view and my portfolio, having many discussions about how we as a council act as an enabler and a support for such companies going forward. These are groups that are embedded within the community, have a real interest in serving the community and providing opportunities in the community. And I think, you know, those along with mutuals, co-ops, social enterprises certainly should form more or a bigger element of our economic approach going forward. Clearly, you know, it's a mix, it's not just that, but I think this is exciting to see how this develops. The other comment is that despite this accent, I keep telling people I've lived here 30 years, and the first place we moved to was Norristhorpe, 1991. Dewsbury was buzzing. Dewsbury was a great little town. We had lots of manufacturing employment, with people earning decent wages and lots of economic activity. I was the HR manager at Firth Furnishings Heckman Dwight before I disappeared off to join an American company some years later, and loved it there. And it was a tragedy to see those jobs disappear and the economy decline around Dewsbury and Heckman Dwight, and eventually, and particularly with austerity, to see the town decline. I think this will help, not just this, but the major work around the market, the investment we put in there will bring that town back to where it was. And the passion that Councillor Firth has for this is fantastic. We met an officer who showed us around the arcade, and unfortunately I can't remember her name, but she lives in Dewsbury, and her passion was immense. It was inspirational. She said she's absolutely dedicated to the town. She's going to make sure that we get back to where we were. So 1991 is my memory of Dewsbury buzzing, and for a number of years after that it was buzzing, and it's always been for me a tragedy to see what's happened, and now we see a pathway forward, and like you said, Leader, I know we have the right cabinet member and Councillor Firth to drive this forward as well, so it's fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Paul Davis. Councillor Cathy Scott was also a Dewsbury councillor. I'm fully committed behind this, and she deputised for me on the Dewsbury board. Cathy, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think members may remember at Dewsbury Town Hall when we launched the blueprint, and then they told me then that we'd acquired the arcade, and I was so proud that this council's commitment continued. We've supported it. This administration has put Dewsbury at its forefront, and also Huddersfield. And I'd just like to say, for all the negative people out there, we do listen to your comments, but negativity, you've got to have a solution. So what was your solution? We're moving forward. We've got a fabulous group that are undertaking these premises, and I know, I've watched it grow. They are going to go far with this, and I think Dewsbury will be back on the map. But just remember, Dewsbury is a historic little town. It's got small buildings, and a lot of retail or manufacturers out there cannot fit their kind of goods within these small premises. So we've got to look to being niche market, but also on the outskirts, bring it closer into bigger industry, bigger retail. People are still investing in us. So I just want to commend the officers for the work they've done, but commend this group for sticking through, because they have had a barrage of negativity, and I can just see positive things going forward. So well done, everybody.
Thank you very much, Cathy Scott. And just going back to what Councillor David Hall said, I can understand what David is saying, because I had my own views regarding the arcade and the kind of clientele that was going in there. But having said that, I'm really pleased with the work they've done so far and the kind of clientele that's going in there, because that clientele is actually buzzing. It's actually very passionate. And I'm really pleased that you've got a waiting list as well of small firms, businesses, whoever they are, wanting to come in there. Because if they can fill this in and if they can bring something different to Dewsbury, it will definitely put Dewsbury on the map. And I'm really pleased at the work you've done, Eric. So thank you to you. Thank you to your great team of staff. Thank you to all the officers. Thank you to the Dewsbury board. And without the great work they're doing, we wouldn't have been here. So once again, thanks very much to everybody. So without further ado, can I have a show of hands that will approve this? Thank you very much. Okay, members, you'll be glad to know that's the end of today's meetings. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for councillors who are not in the cabinet but who attended, for taking the time out. Thank you very much for Mr Aziz for coming and asking the question, and everybody else out there who have been watching and listening. Good night and God bless.